The wedding bells rang on Christmas morning, but the moon did not bless the bride. Everyone expected white silk, sacred vows, and a Luna crowned beside her Alpha King. Instead, she walked into the sacred hall wearing a red Christmas dress, stitched with silver moons, glowing against the snow, while the pack gasped in horror. They whispered that she was cursed, that she was mocking ancient laws, that she was unworthy of the Alpha who waited at the altar. What no one knew was that the moon had already chosen her and sealed her power out of fear. When the Alpha rejected her before the pack, the bond did not break quietly. It screamed. The forest answered. And something ancient woke beneath the snow, something born not from blessing, but from betrayal. Her rejection did not make her weak. It unlocked a force the packs had buried for centuries. Now the Alpha who turned her away is losing his crown. The land itself is cracking under the weight of old lies, and the woman who fled into the forest is no longer running. She is returning not as a Luna who kneels in white, but as a queen forged in blood, winter, and truth. This is not just a werewolf romance. It is the story of why she wore red. Why rejection created a monster and a savior in the same breath. And why some weddings are meant to end the world before they begin. Wolf-Face Crescent Moon. The bells of Silver Pine rang before dawn, their deep, ancient tones rolling through the mountains like a promise the pack had waited generations to hear. It was Christmas morning. Snow lay thick on the pine branches, glowing softly under the pale moonlight that refused to fade even as the sun threatened the horizon. Torches burned along the stone paths leading to the sacred clearing, their flames steady, as if even fire understood the importance of this day. Today, the Alpha King would take his Luna. And the entire pack believed they already knew how the story would end. Arya stood alone in the small stone chamber behind the ceremonial hall, her breath forming faint clouds in the cold air. The room smelled of pine resin, old magic, and something sharper, anticipation mixed with fear. Outside, she could hear the low hum of voices, the shifting of feet, the excited murmurs of wolves who had dressed in their finest furs and cloaks to witness history. Her hands trembled as she looked at her reflection in the tall bronze mirror. She was not wearing white. The dress clung to her like a living thing, deep crimson, the color of winter berries and fresh blood against snow. Silver thread traced delicate moons and runes along the bodice and sleeves, catching the torchlight when she moved. It was unmistakably a Christmas dress, the kind worn during winter feasts and celebrations, not during sacred mating ceremonies blessed by the moon goddess herself. The traditional Luna gown, pure white, enchanted, holy, hung untouched on a wooden stand behind her. Arya swallowed. This is how it has to be. She lifted her chin, forcing her shoulders back, even as her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might shatter her ribs. For as long as she could remember, she had dreamed of this day, not because of crowns or power, but because of him. Alpha Kill. Leader of the Silver Pine Pack. Warrior. King. The wolf every other wolf bowed to instinctively. And her fated mate. At least, he was supposed to be. A soft knock echoed against the stone door. Arya, came the gentle voice of Elder Malin. It's time. Arya closed her eyes briefly, pressing her fingers into the fabric of the red dress, grounding herself in its warmth. When she opened them again, her reflection looked back at her with eyes far older than her 21 winters. I'm ready, she said. The elder hesitated on the other side of the door. You are aware that the Alpha has not approved. I know, Arya interrupted quietly. Please, open the door. Silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Then the door creaked open. Elder Malin's eyes fell to the dress, and for a moment, the old woman's carefully controlled expression cracked. Shock flashed first, then fear. Then something else, recognition. The moon protect us, Malin whispered. Arya offered a sad smile. She already chose not to. They walked together toward the ceremonial hall, the sound of the bells growing louder with every step. As Arya crossed the threshold, the warmth of hundreds of bodies and burning torches washed over her. And then, silence. It fell like a blade. Every conversation died. Every laugh froze. Every head turned. Arya felt it instantly, the collective shock of the pack crashing into her like a wave. Whispers rippled outward, spreading faster than wildfire. She's wearing red. Is this some kind of joke? That's not a Luna gown. Has she lost her mind? At the front of the hall stood Alpha Kale. He was dressed in ceremonial black and silver, his broad shoulders squared, his dark hair pulled back in the traditional alpha braid. Power rolled off him in invisible waves, making weaker wolves instinctively lower their gazes. His eyes found her, and widened. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between them. Arya felt the familiar pull in her chest. The half-formed bond tugging painfully, desperately, like a thread stretched too thin. Kale's expression shifted rapidly. Surprise, anger, disbelief. Then fury. What is this? His voice echoed through the hall, deep and sharp enough to cut. Arya stopped at the center of the aisle, her feet rooted to the stone floor. Every instinct screamed at her to bow, to apologize, to beg. She did none of those things. "This is my wedding attire," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. A low growl rumbled through the hall, not from Kale alone, but from dozens of wolves reacting to his anger. "You were instructed to wear the Luna gown," Kale snapped. "That dress is a mockery of our laws." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Arya felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on her, but she refused to look away from him. "It's Christmas," she said softly. "A day of truth, of birth, of endings and beginnings." Kale took a step toward her, his aura flaring. "This ceremony is sacred. You don't get to redefine it." Her lips trembled despite her resolve. "Neither do you." A collective gasp swept through the hall. No one spoke to the Alpha King like that. Kale stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Explain yourself." "Now." Arya's throat tightened. This was the moment she had feared and prepared for. She glanced briefly at the moon altar behind him. The silver stone glowed faintly, waiting to bless a union it believed inevitable. "I cannot wear white," she said. "Not today. Not ever." Kale's eyes darkened. "Why?" "Because the moon had never answered her prayers. Because her wolf had never awakened. Because every full moon left her weaker, not stronger. Because she had overheard the elders whispering that an alpha could not bind himself to a Luna without a wolf. Because she knew what he would choose if forced. But she did not say any of that. Instead, she whispered the truth that mattered most. Because the moon already rejected me." The hall erupted. "That's impossible. She's cursed." "Then why is she here?" "She's trying to trap the Alpha." Kale stiffened. "Rejected," he repeated coldly. "You dare claim the moon goddess herself has judged you unworthy?" Arya's eyes burned. "I don't need to claim it. I live it." Something flickered across Kale's face, doubt, perhaps, but it vanished quickly beneath years of training and expectation. "If you cannot be blessed," he said slowly, "then this ceremony cannot proceed." The words struck her harder than any blade. Arya felt the bond strain violently, pain lancing through her chest. Her knees nearly buckled, but she forced herself to stand tall. "So that's it?" she asked quietly. "After everything?" Kale's jaw clenched. "This is bigger than us." She laughed then, a soft, broken sound that echoed too loudly in the silent hall. "It always is." Snow began to fall through the open roof of the ceremonial hall, drifting down like pale ash. The torches flickered. The moon altar pulsed once, twice, then cracked. A thin line split the silver stone. Gasps turned into shouts. The altar. The moon. This is a bad omen. Arya felt something stir deep inside her chest, something hot, ancient, and furious. She looked down at her red dress, now glowing faintly against the white snow. "Remember this day," she said, her voice carrying unnaturally far. "Remember that I came in truth and was turned away." Then she turned and ran. As she burst out into the snow-covered forest, a howl tore from her throat, raw, broken, and not quite human. Behind her, Alpha Kale staggered, clutching his chest as pain ripped through him. Because somewhere between rejection and regret, the bond had begun to break. And the moon was watching. The moon did not set that morning. It hovered low and pale above Silverpine, refusing to retreat into daylight as it always had. Wolves whispered that it was watching. Others said it was judging. By the time the sun finally crept over the mountains, the pack had already begun to fracture. Arya ran until her lungs burned and her legs trembled beneath her. Snow whipped against her face, stinging like tiny blades, but she welcomed the pain. It kept her grounded, kept her from thinking about the way Alpha Kale's voice had hardened when he told her the ceremony could not proceed. "This is bigger than us." The words echoed in her head, each repetition cutting deeper. She stumbled into a small clearing deep within the forbidden forest, collapsing against the trunk of an ancient pine. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her fingers clawing into the bark as if the earth itself might hold her together. "Why?" she whispered to the silent trees. "Why now?" The forest did not answer, but something else did. A low hum vibrated through the ground beneath her, subtle yet unmistakable. The air thickened, heavy with old magic. Arya froze, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She had felt this before. Once, when she was a child. She had been no more than 6 winters old when the pack found her at the edge of the forest during a blood moon. The memory rose unbidden, sharp and vivid. Snow had not fallen that night. Instead, the ground was wet with dew that glowed faintly red under the swollen moon. The hunters had been tracking a rogue when they heard crying, thin, broken, and human. They found her curled beside a fallen log, wrapped in rags far too thin for the cold. Her hair had been matted with dirt and blood, someone else's blood, and her small hands were clenched around a silver pendant etched with a crescent moon. "She's alive," one of them whispered in disbelief. No tracks led to her. No scent, no parents, no pack. Only the pendant, and the way the moonlight seemed to cling to her skin. When they brought her before the elders, the moon priestess had gone pale. "This child is moon-touched," the priestess had said. "But her wolf sleeps." "How is that possible?" another elder demanded. "Every wolf awakens." "Not all wolves are meant to," the priestess replied quietly. The elders argued deep into the night. Some wanted to leave her where she was found, fearing a curse. Others insisted the moon would not abandon a child without reason. In the end, compassion won. They named her Arya and raised her among them, but never as one of their own. The hum beneath Arya's feet faded, pulling her back into the present. She wiped her face with trembling hands, realizing tears had frozen on her cheeks. She had grown up hearing the whispers. "She's strange." Her wolf never came. The moon marked her, then forgot her. Only Kale had ever treated her differently. He had been newly crowned alpha when she turned 16, already feared, already respected. Where others looked at her with suspicion, he looked at her with something like curiosity. And, sometimes, longing. Arya pushed herself upright, wrapping her arms around her chest as the forest grew unnaturally quiet. No birds. No wind. Just stillness. Come out, she said softly. I know someone's there. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shadows shifted. An old woman stepped into the clearing, leaning heavily on a crooked staff. Her hair was white as frost, her eyes cloudy yet piercing. She wore robes the color of ash, embroidered with symbols older than the pack itself. Still sharp, the woman said. Even when broken. Arya's breath caught. Elder Nissa. Nissa had once been the pack's most powerful seer, until her visions grew too dangerous. Too inconvenient. You followed me, Arya said. Nissa shook her head. No. The moon did. Anger flared in Arya's chest. Then tell her to stop watching. She made her choice. Nissa studied her for a long moment. Did she? Arya laughed bitterly. I have no wolf. No blessing. No place. What else would you call it? Nissa tapped her staff against the ground. A delay. Arya's head snapped up. What? The elders never told you the full truth, Nissa said. They were afraid. Of me? Of what you are meant to become. Nissa reached into her robes and pulled out a folded piece of aged parchment. The edges were brittle, the ink faded but powerful. A prophecy, Nissa said. One the pack buried the night you were found. She unfolded it carefully, revealing symbols etched in blood-red ink. Arya felt her pulse spike. Nissa read aloud. When the moon bleeds and winter crowns the land, a Luna in red shall stand where white is banned. Rejected by crown, betrayed by vow. She will rise when the alpha bows. Her howl will split both throne and sky, for she is end, and she is why. Silence fell heavy between them. Arya's hands shook. This is a lie. Nissa's gaze softened. You wore red today. Arya swallowed. The prophecy frightened them, Nissa continued. It spoke of an alpha losing his crown, of laws breaking, of a Luna who would not kneel. So they hid it, Arya whispered. They hid you, Nissa corrected. They hoped if they raised you small enough, quiet enough, the prophecy would die. Arya's chest ached. And Kale. Nissa sighed. He was trained to rule, not to question. He was told that if his Luna lacked a wolf, the pack would fall. Arya looked away, pain slicing through her. So he chose the pack. Yes, Nissa said gently. And in doing so, he set the prophecy in motion. A distant howl echoed through the forest, anguished, furious, unmistakably alpha. Kale. Arya pressed her palm to her chest, gasping as the half-formed bond flared painfully. I felt that, she whispered. So did he, Nissa said. The bond was never meant to be sealed in white. What does that mean? Arya demanded. Nissa stepped closer. Your wolf did not sleep because it was weak. It was sealed. Sealed? Arya echoed. To protect the pack, Nissa said. Your power, unbound, would have shattered the old order. So the moon delayed your awakening until rejection forced truth into the open. Arya's knees buckled. Nissa caught her before she fell. All my life. Arya choked. I thought I wasn't enough. Nissa cupped her face. You were too much. The forest trembled suddenly, trees groaning as if shifting their roots. Snow fell harder, swirling around them. Nissa straightened. Others have felt it. Rival alphas. Ancient things. Fear flickered through Arya. What happens now? Nissa's eyes gleamed. Now, child of red and moonlight, you choose. Choose what? Whether you will run from what you are, Nissa said, or become the Luna the world was never ready for. Another howl split the air, closer this time. Arya closed her eyes, the prophecy burning in her mind. Rejected by crown, betrayed by vow. When she opened them again, something had changed. Teach me, she said. Nissa smiled, a sharp, knowing curve of her lips. Then we must leave Silverpine, she said. Before the alpha finds you. Arya took one last look toward the distant mountains where she had once believed her future waited. Snow fell softly around her crimson-stained hem. The moon watched, and the prophecy, long buried, had begun to breathe. The sacred hall of Silverpine had never felt so cold. Hours after Arya fled into the forest, the torches still burned, but their flames flickered low and restless, as if they too sensed the fracture that had torn through the pack. Snow drifted through the cracked roof, settling on the stone floor where a Luna should have stood crowned in white. Alpha Kale remained where she had left him, on his knees. His hands were pressed flat against the stone, his breath ragged, his vision swimming with a pain he had never known, not from battle, not from claws or blades, but from something far worse. Rejection. The bond burned through his chest like molten iron, half-formed and violently torn, refusing to sever cleanly. Every heartbeat sent another wave of agony through him, as if his wolf were clawing at his ribs from the inside. "Find her," his wolf snarled. "She is ours." Kale clenched his jaw, forcing himself upright as the elders gathered around him in uneasy silence. "This should not be happening," Elder Malin said, her voice tight. "The bond should not react like this if she is truly unblessed." Another elder crossed his arms. "Unless the moon has not finished speaking." Kale's eyes snapped up. "Enough." The hall fell silent instantly. "She defied sacred law," Kale said, though the words tasted like ash. "She humiliated the pack before the moon." "I did what I had to do, didn't I?" The question whispered through his mind, unwelcome and persistent. Before anyone could respond, a sudden gust of icy wind tore through the hall, slamming the door shut with thunderous force. The torches flared violently, then dimmed. A gasp rippled through the elders. The moon altar pulsed again. Cracks spread across its surface like veins of ice. "This is not normal," Malin whispered. "The moon does not react to defiance, only to injustice." Kale's chest tightened. Arya ran. Branches tore at her skin, snow soaked her slippers, and her lungs screamed for mercy, but she did not slow. She could still feel Silverpine. Behind her, the weight of the pack's judgment pressing against her spine. And worse, she could feel Kale. Every step sent a sharp tug through her chest, the bond screaming in protest. It hurt to breathe. It hurt to exist. "Let it break," she begged silently. "Please, just let it break." Her foot caught on a root, and she tumbled hard into the snow, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She lay there, staring up at the bare winter branches, her vision blurring. "This is it," she thought. "This is where I end." A low growl rumbled through the forest. Arya's heart slammed against her ribs as she scrambled backward, her palms slipping against the icy ground. Wolves. But this growl was wrong. Deeper. Older. Not quite wolf. The air thickened, pressing down on her like an unseen weight. Her chest burned, heat spreading outward from the place where the bond had torn. "No," she whispered, clutching her sternum. "Not now." Pain exploded through her body. She screamed as something inside her shifted, bones stretching, muscles burning, her senses sharpening to an unbearable degree. She curled in on herself, nails digging into the snow as a sound tore from her throat that was not human. Not wolf. Something in between. Silver light flared around her, mingling with crimson, wrapping her body in a violent cocoon of magic. The forest trembled, trees bowing inward as if in reverence or fear. Arya's scream became a howl. It echoed across the mountains. Kale staggered as the howl reached Silverpine. His wolf roared in response, slamming against his control with feral desperation. "Her," it snarled. "She awakens." Kale dropped to one knee again, gripping his chest as the bond flared so violently he thought it might kill him. Images flooded his mind, Arya in the snow, her red dress glowing, blood and moonlight entwined. "Alpha," one of the guards shouted. "Orders." Kale lifted his head slowly, his eyes glowing silver. "Clear the hall," he commanded. "Now." The elders hesitated. "That howl," Malin said carefully. It was not a normal awakening. Kale's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Then pray to the moon that I reach her before someone else does." Arya lay curled in the clearing, her body trembling uncontrollably. The pain ebbed slowly, leaving behind a strange, hollow ache and something else. Strength. She pushed herself up on shaking arms, staring at her hands. They were still human. But the world around her was different. She could hear the snow settling on branches miles away. Smell the distant fear of prey. Feel the pulse of the earth beneath her skin. And beneath it all, a presence. "I am here." The voice was not Kale's. It was deeper, layered, ancient. "Who are you?" Arya whispered. "I am what you were sealed to protect," the voice replied. "And what you were sealed to become." A shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. Arya spun, her heart racing. 3 wolves stepped into the moonlight. But they were not from Silverpine. Their pelts were dark, their eyes glowing amber with hunger and calculation. Rogues. One of them grinned, baring sharp teeth. "Well," he drawled, "looks like Christmas came late this year." Arya backed away slowly, fear coiling in her stomach, but it did not paralyze her. It sharpened her. "You should leave," she said, surprised by the authority in her own voice. The rogues laughed. "Or what?" another taunted. "You'll haul us away?" Arya felt the presence inside her rise, coiling, waiting. She met their gazes, unflinching. "I was rejected before the moon," she said softly. "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" The ground beneath her feet cracked. Silver and red light flared around her once more. The rogues' laughter died. Far away, Alpha Kale ran through the forest, following the pull of a bond that refused to die. And above them all, the moon watched in silence. Because rejection had done what blessing never could. It had awakened the beast. The forest bowed. Arya felt it before she saw it, felt the ancient trees bend inward, their roots shifting beneath the frozen soil as if making room for something long denied. The air vibrated with power, heavy and electric, pressing against her skin until every nerve screamed awareness. The 3 rogues took an instinctive step back. This was no ordinary Omega. This was no ordinary awakening. Silver and crimson light spiraled around Arya, lifting her slightly from the ground. Her breath came slow now, controlled, as if the chaos inside her had finally found direction. "Do not fear," the presence within her said, its voice layered with echoes. "You were never meant to remain small." Arya closed her eyes and let go. The transformation tore through her like fire. Her bones shifted with a sickening crack, but there was no pain this time, only release. Heat flooded her veins as fur burst across her skin, not gray or brown like most wolves, but deep red streaked with molten silver. Her spine arched, her vision sharpening until the world fractured into scent and sound and intent. When her paws hit the ground, the earth shuddered. The rogues froze. Before them stood a wolf larger than any they had ever seen, sleek, powerful, her crimson coat glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. Silver markings traced her flanks like living runes, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her eyes burned an unearthly silver red, ancient and unforgiving. A crimson Luna wolf. A myth. A warning. One of the rogues dropped to his knees. "That's impossible," he whispered. "They're extinct." Arya's growl rolled through the clearing like distant thunder. "Extinct," the voice within her echoed. "Or hidden." The bravest of the rogues lunged. He never reached her. Arya moved faster than thought, her massive form blurring as she slammed into him, sending his body crashing into a tree with bone-shattering force. He fell, unconscious, before he hit the snow. The other two turned to flee. Arya did not chase. She lifted her head and howled. The sound was not a challenge, it was a command. The forest answered. Wolves across the mountains froze mid-step. Birds took flight in panicked flurries. Even the wind shifted, bending toward her call. The remaining rogues collapsed, clutching their heads as the howl crushed their will, driving terror deep into their bones. "Go," Arya rumbled, her voice carrying both wolf and woman. "And tell your alphas what you saw." They didn't hesitate. When the clearing fell silent again, Arya stood alone beneath the moon, her chest rising and falling slowly. "You see now," the presence said. "Rejection did not break you. It freed you." The world shimmered and shifted. The forest around her faded, replaced by visions that poured into her mind. She saw the past. Not hers, but the Pack's. Long ago, before Silverpine had a name, before alphas ruled with crowns and councils, the Crimson Lunas walked openly among wolves. They were not mates chosen by ceremony, but forces of balance, born when power threatened to tilt too far toward tyranny. They did not kneel. They did not rule alone. They stood between. Arya saw a Crimson Luna stand before an alpha who demanded obedience. With a single howl, she stripped him of his crown and gave it to another more worthy. "We were feared," the presence said. "So we were sealed." The vision shifted. She saw elders chanting beneath a blood moon, their hands glowing as they wove binding magic around a newborn child. She felt the seal close, heavy, and suffocating. "To protect the Pack," the voice continued. "And to protect you." Arya's heart clenched. From what? From becoming what they feared, the voice replied softly. Too soon. The vision shattered. Arya collapsed back into human form, gasping as the cold bit into her bare skin. The remnants of her red dress lay in ashes around her, but the silver runes burned into her skin briefly before fading. She was trembling, but she was not weak. Nyssa emerged from the shadows, her eyes shining with awe and something like relief. "So it's true," the old seer murmured. "The Crimson Luna lives." Arya wrapped her arms around herself. "What am I?" Nyssa knelt before her, not in submission, but in reverence. "You are balance," she said. "You are the answer to a question the Pack stopped asking." Arya swallowed. "Kale will come." "Yes," Nyssa agreed. "And when he does, he will not find the girl he rejected." Arya looked down at her hands, still faintly glowing. "I don't want to destroy him." Nyssa met her gaze. "Then you must leave. Learn. Control what you've awakened." "Where?" Nyssa gestured deeper into the forest. "Beyond the old borders. Where the moon's laws are older than Pack's." A sudden pressure flared in Arya's chest, the bond pulling sharply. "He's close," Arya whispered. Nyssa's joy tightened. "Then we go now." They moved swiftly, deeper into the forbidden forest, the air growing warmer, heavier with magic. Behind them, the trees groaned as if closing ranks. Kale burst into the clearing moments later. The scent hit him first. Blood, ozone, and something ancient that made his wolf whine in awe. His gaze fell to the massive paw prints scorched into the earth. "What have I done?" he whispered. The bond tugged again, fainter now, stretched thin. She was leaving. Kale slammed his fist into a tree, splintering bark. "Arya!" The forest swallowed his shout. Above him, the moon glowed brighter than it had in centuries. Because the beast born from rejection had awakened. And the old world was already beginning to crack. Winter deepened. Snow no longer fell gently over Silverpine, it came in relentless storms that buried paths, snapped branches, and silenced the forest with suffocating weight. The Pack told themselves it was just the season. But Kale knew better. The land was reacting. Since the day Arya fled, nothing had been right. Hunts failed. Borders weakened. The moon altar remained cracked, its silver glow dim and erratic. Wolves grew restless, snapping at one another over nothing. Even Cale's commands, once absolute, no longer carried the same unquestioned power. At night, he dreamed of Red. Arya standing beneath the moon, her crimson dress glowing as blood soaked the snow. Arya turning away from him, her eyes no longer soft, but ancient and judging. Arya howling not in pain, but in command. Each dream ended the same way, with Cale on his knees. He woke from another such vision with a growl tearing from his throat, his claws gouging deep into the stone floor of his chamber. Sweat soaked his skin, his chest burning where the bond still throbbed like an open wound. Find her, his wolf demanded, hoarse with need. We are breaking without her. Cale dragged himself upright, staring at his reflection in the darkened mirror. The Alpha King looked hollow. His eyes were ringed with shadows, his aura unstable, flickering like a dying flame. I chose the pack, he muttered. And lost it, his wolf replied. The elders could no longer deny it. 3 months after the failed ceremony, Silverpine was summoned to an emergency council beneath the shattered moon altar. Snow fell through the cracks in the roof, settling on the ancient stone like ash on a grave. This is her doing, one elder snapped. She destabilized the pack. No, Elder Malin said quietly. We did. All eyes turned to her. Malin straightened, her voice steady despite the tension. We buried a prophecy. We sealed a power we didn't understand. And when the moment came, we chose tradition over truth. Cale's jaw tightened. You knew. Malin met his gaze. Enough to fear it. Silence stretched. Then Nissa's words echoed in Cale's mind. She was never meant to kneel. Cale exhaled slowly. Where would she go? Malin hesitated. Beyond the old borders. To the wild realms. Murmurs rippled through the elders. That territory is forbidden, someone protested. No alpha rules there. Cale's eyes hardened. Then no alpha will stop me. The wild realms were nothing like Silverpine. The further Cale traveled, the more the world seemed to unravel. The air grew thick with raw magic, the forest dense and twisted, trees bearing scars of ancient battles. The moon hung lower here, brighter, as if drawn closer by something it recognized. Cale moved alone. He shed his crown and ceremonial markings, traveling as a wolf when he could, as a man when the terrain demanded it. Days blurred into nights, hunger gnawing at him, exhaustion weighing heavy, but the pull of the bond guided him unerringly forward. Each step brought pain. Each step brought hope. Then, one night, he found her. Arya stood at the edge of a frozen lake, her back to him, moonlight catching in her dark hair. She wore a cloak the color of midnight, but beneath it, he sensed the power coiled tightly within her, controlled, restrained, terrifying. She did not turn when he approached. I wondered how long it would take, she said calmly. Cale stopped several paces away, his heart hammering. Arya. The sound of her name on his lips felt like a wound reopening. She turned slowly. Her eyes were no longer the soft brown he remembered. They shimmered silver red, ancient and unreadable. The bond flared painfully between them, no longer a promise, but a scar. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know, Cale replied hoarsely. But I had to find you. She laughed softly, without humor. Did you? Or did your pack force you? Cale took a step forward and stopped when the ice beneath his foot cracked, reacting to her unspoken warning. I came because I was wrong, he said. Because I failed you. Arya's expression did not change. You rejected me before the moon and the pack. I was afraid, Cale admitted. The word tasted bitter. Afraid of losing everything I was raised to protect. And so you chose to lose me, she said quietly. Kale swallowed hard. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know the truth. He lowered himself to one knee. Not in ritual. Not in command. But in surrender. Gasps echoed from the shadows as unseen watchers stirred, but Kale did not look away from her. I am not here as Alpha, he said. I am here as a man who broke the one thing the moon gave him. Arya stared at him, her chest tight. For a moment, she saw the Kale she had loved. The one who had brought her food during her first winter, who had listened when she spoke of feeling empty beneath the full moon. Then the memory shattered. You're too late, she said. Pain flashed across Kale's face, but he nodded. I know. She stepped closer, the air crackling between them. The bond is no longer yours to command. I don't want to command it, he whispered. I want to earn it. Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Finally, Arya spoke. I will return to Silverpine, she said. Hope flared in Kale's chest. But not as your Luna, she continued coldly. Not as something chosen by ceremony or fear. Kale bowed his head. Then as what? Her gaze burned into him. As your equal, she said. Or not at all. The ice beneath them cracked sharply, splitting the frozen lake in two. Far above, the moon brightened. Kale lifted his head, understanding dawning painfully. The Alpha King had begged too late. And the world would never return to what it was before.